Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to talk about two different topics. So we're going to start with the new truck drivers and how it's okay to be a new truck driver. And then in the second half of the video, I'm going to talk to the truck drivers that have some experience and how it's still okay to act like a new truck driver. So if you are a new truck driver, be sure to stick around to the end because it's going to pertain to you at some point. So stick around. So when coming up with the idea for this video, the original idea was to talk to the new truck drivers, and that's what we're going to touch on first. You know, it's okay when you're a new truck driver and you're out here learning. And I just want you guys to know that it's okay to be a new truck driver and to understand that you're gonna make mistakes out here. It's just the way that it is. There's a lot going on. You know, it's nerve-wracking to drive around this huge truck with this huge trailer behind it. It's just not something that you're used to. And then on top of that, you're dealing with a lot of gears, and so you're not used to having to maneuver while having to shift through this many gears, you know, trying to learn the shifting sequence. You know, if you have an automatic truck, then you're still trying to learn how to maneuver this big old truck and that big old trailer behind you. And it's okay to make mistakes. What it's not okay to do is make major mistakes. And what generally happens, what leads to a major mistake, is compounding small mistakes, and I'm going to explain. Let's say, for instance, that you miss a turn. Well, what you should do when you miss a turn is you should stop. You should not proceed, especially if you're, you know, in a tight area, if you're like in a downtown type of area, or if you're in a residential area, you probably definitely shouldn't be there. So you don't want to just continue on, because you're compounding mistakes at that point. And you could put yourself in a very precarious spot, and it could be really tight, and you may use all of the space that you have, but you might still wind up hitting something. Or you might still wind up trimming trees, and in the process of trimming trees, you wind up trimming limbs, and it puts holes in your trailer. That would be an example of compounding mistakes. So you definitely don't want to do that. You know, the mistake of backing into a spot, you know, if you don't set up properly, or if you don't understand what full control over the trailer actually feels like, then you're compounding a mistake when you don't get out and look. When you don't get out and look multiple times, you want to make sure that before the trailer starts to enter that parking spot, you want to get out and look to see where it's sitting, to see, you know, wow, well, is it tracking where I want it to track? And then once you get a little bit further into that spot, if you are not 100% positive that you're not going to hit anything, you should be stopping again about 10 feet into that back. And here's another point that I really wanted to make. When you pull into a truck stop and you're a new truck driver, or even if you're just maybe not confident in your backing skills, you've been doing it a few years, if you carry a CB radio with you, turn it off. You know, turn it off, or, you know, if you can kind of withstand the jabbing, that's almost inevitably going to happen from some of these other guys who forget that they were new truck drivers at 1.2, then, you know, it's probably best to either turn it off, or if you start hearing that, don't take it personally. You got to understand that the guys with experience that have been out here a long time, you know, back in the day, we used to give each other crap all of the time. You know, and that's just, I say we, I've been doing this for 9 years, but growing up, that's just the mentality of guys that are a little bit older than, you know, some of you younger generations out there. We like to give each other crap. We like to give each other a hard time. You know, it's a good time for us to poke fun at each other. And the majority of the time, that's really all that's coming through on that CB. And at the time, though, you know, you're already frustrated probably, you know, if you have trouble going backwards, and that can multiply, and then you can take it incorrectly. You can think, man, these guys are they're just being a-holes, but in reality they're just hazing you a little bit. So rather than taking the hazing, you can approach it one of two ways. You can either cut off that CB, get out and look as often as it takes, you know, or you can come back across the CB and be like, hey, you know, one of you guys that have more miles in reverse than I have going forward, do you mind getting out and showing me a few things? You mind helping me get in this spot? A lot of times there's going to be somebody that's going to come to your rescue, and they're going to help you out, especially, you know, in the middle of the night, especially if you're trying to park next to a nice rig. They're probably going to want to get out and help you because they don't want you hitting their rig. But the point is that it's okay to be a new truck driver. It's okay if you haven't mastered all of these skills. You know, if you haven't mastered the art of going backwards, if you haven't mastered the art of trip planning, if you haven't mastered the art of, you know, of getting to your destination, or if for your flatbed guys, your securement. You know, I'll tell you right now, when I get to a place that's not, you know, I'm picking up a load that is not abundantly clear how to secure this load, and I'm talking about like I-beams abundantly clear, you know, shingles are abundantly clear, you know, things of that nature that we carry often, lumber's abundantly clear. If it's something that's even just remotely different, I ask. I always ask, even if I know how I'm gonna secure it. I ask, because sometimes this has happened to me a couple of times where I have asked and they said, oh, okay, well, I saw, you know, some of the other drivers, they secured it like this. And when they told me how it was secured, I looked at it and I'm like, well, you know, that's interesting. That's a different way to do it. Now, ultimately, you have to do it the way that you want to do it, or the way that you're going to feel comfortable, and the way that you feel that it aligns with DOT regulations. Ultimately, in the end, it's your decision. But it's never a bad thing to ask what other people think or how they do things. You can take that bit of information, you can process it, and then you can see if it'll work for you. But, you know, the problem, or the major problems that occur in trucking, are usually compounded problems. And this could be, you know, you're on your phone. You know that you shouldn't be on your phone, but you're on your phone anyway, and maybe, you know, the weather's bad. And so this, you know, this is one problem leading to a second problem, and the percentage difference on the attention that it takes away from you is compounded to the point where you could get in a major accident. You know, it's things like that that lead to those ultimate disasters. So if you can eliminate the compounded problems, then you're going to enjoy your experience more. You're going to become a much better truck driver, which is ultimately going to lead to more money. This industry experience is king, and it's something that you really need to master. And it's one of those things that, you know, it's not, ultimately, this isn't the most difficult job in the world. You know, it's night and day difference when we're talking about running a business as an owner-operator. That's totally different. But as far as the actual driving part of, you know, of this career, it's not the most difficult. And that's actually a nice thing, because you can progress through this career very quickly and make really good pay really quickly. So just try not to compound your problems. Now I want to talk to the guys that have some experience, and I'm talking, you know, about 1 year mark, really all the way through. All the way through this pertains. And I'm not getting on to anyone, you know, I'm certainly guilty of this, and we all are. If you've been out here any amount of time, we're all guilty of it. But as experienced truck drivers, we should act like new truck drivers. And what I mean by that is, a new truck driver, if you remember back, if you can remember that far back, when you first started driving a truck, you were aware of everything that was going on. You know, you were aware of every car that was around you. You were aware of the turns that were coming up. You were aware of the deer that you saw on the side of the road. You know, you were aware of so much more than what you're aware of now. And there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this. It's fine. You know, I'm okay. I can put my ego in check. But the fact is, the longer that you do this, the more it just becomes habitual. Now, the good thing is, if you create good habits, then that last 20 miles that you just drove that you really don't remember driving, you're gonna still be checking your mirrors. You're still gonna know all the vehicles that are around you. You're still gonna know, you know, what milepost you're at. You're gonna know which direction you're headed, because these things are gonna be natural to you. But the thing is, all of these habits stem from early in your career and how you learned to drive that truck. You know, if you're not a sign reader, then you should train yourself all over again as a new truck driver. So, you know, I just don't want truck drivers to fall into that complacency. And, you know, you new truck drivers that are still here, I applaud you. I urge you to, you know, really create these good habits now. That way they become instinctual later. That way you can move your attention more towards hazards on the road. I can't tell you how many times a four-wheeler comes flying by me on the right, and I just tell myself instinctually, wow, they're about to cut me off. I'll let my foot off the accelerator, and guess what they do? It's like clockwork. You know, you can foresee when these vehicles are going to be exiting. You can foresee when they're going to be turning. A lot of these things just become naturally ingrained. But try to ingrain those good habits and build good habits from the start. That way later on, when you're a little bit more on autopilot, which it's inevitable, it sounds bad, I get it. Try not to be, but it's going to happen. At least when you have those good habits, those are going to be the ones that are ingrained, and those are going to be the ones that are on autopilot. And you're going to have a long, safe career. Because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is get home to our families while, you know, putting that food on the table. So I hope you got some value out of this. If you did, please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, ring that notification bell. Check out one of these videos over here. I think you'll like one of those. But as always, stay driven.